greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
You are tuned in to another episode of the Red Pill Hardcore. And as usual, I'm your host, V. And, you know, I've got JoAnne Denison on the air with me. Again, we had to make this a part 2 because this information is so vital. And we want to work on solutions for this stuff. And, you know, something that was said was hit these guys in their pockets. Is something that we really should do. JoAnne, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Okay. And I think we talked about this a little bit. I am more of the feeling that we really should always take the high road. So hitting them in the pockets is not really what we want to do. We want to expose the corruption. We want to get the government information and the data, which I think as taxpayers we are entitled to do so. So I don't see anything illegal with getting into those computers and downloading the data and finding out whether or not there is actually corruption going on. For example, we talked a little bit about the fact that in Chicago we have a presiding judge, Timothy Evans, who's in charge of the Cook County court system, which is the largest court system in the United States. There are hundreds of courts, and I believe about 500 judges. And I am told from FBI agents that have looked at this but have not been able to get it successfully prosecuted, that 95% of the circuit court judges have taken bribes according to their bank records, and they are corrupt. And when they looked at the federal court judges, they found out that 85% of the federal court judges had taken bribes and had been corrupt. And I think, we had also talked about the fact that even if a judge takes a dime, $5, whatever they take, and it changes their mind on the outcome of a case, that judge needs to be removed from the bench. They should have scrupulous morals and integrity. Okay,
but when the system wants to punish civilians for whatever crime, or if they've even committed a crime, what do? They put us in jail or they fine us. So these people only understand their own game. This is all they understand. So
see, but I don't think they look that way. And I think, because remember, when you're talking about judges and lawyers and people like that, the people who are really in positions of power, who have the intellect and the education to do this, I think the people have more of a gut reaction, but these people take it more on an intellectual level. They don't want to be embarrassed. They don't want to be put in prison. That's really what they fear, okay? That's what they don't want to be doing. And I think that the way you overcome that is to actually get the records that our government holds that they do not give to us currently. For instance, I think it's a shame and a scam. Across the nation, there are all these courts that have been operating for decades now. They have documents scanned in, all of our pleadings, all of our documents, and you can go pull a paper file, but you can't, it's not on the internet, and it's not on there for a reasonable price. The federal government does it on Pacer. They brought in Pacer in 2000, and that was a godsend, because that was the end of tampering with files and all kinds of hooey-fooey that goes on in court. Somehow, the federal government managed to put all the court documents online for 8 cents a page. But our state courts withhold those files, and I can tell you why. It's because I have been there in the various departments, Chancery, which does foreclosures, the Law Division, you pull these files, you quickly find that there are fake foreclosures, there are fake mortgages. And that's for the purpose of politicians laundering money and pulling all kinds of nefarious conduct, illegal conduct. It even gets into the sex trade with all these fake things that are going on in court. And if those were published, now all of these politicians are going to have a big problem, because it's going to show that these huge condo projects that were put up in Chicago to generate revenue and all that, they weren't funded properly. They have a whole bunch of purchasers that don't really exist or don't even know that they purchased a property, and it was done by the developers in league with the banks to create fake mortgages and phony records and then have a phony foreclosure. And obviously the court system knows about it. There's a lot of lawyers that know about it. That's all fraud and corruption on the government. And it really comes back to the people. We're being defrauded. We're losing the money. So by putting the court records online, that's the first place we should start. And it should be done right now. They're not doing it. I don't see why anybody really shouldn't go in there and put the damn things online. Get a docket sheet and put them online, get the whole thing. And if Dorothy Brown someday catches up to this, then she can have her 8 cents a page. But right now, the Illinois State Legislature says we have to pay 25 cents a page for the first 10 pages, and then some ridiculous amount to get our own damn court documents online. That's ridiculous. And those court documents have to be put online. So if anybody's going to look for data to gather, I would definitely do that and put it online. The next thing I would go after, and of course I would say do it confidentially, are the judges' bank records. And if they show that there are bribes being taken and disseminated to them, that needs to be put online. I don't know, WikiLeaks or whatever, but I got news for you. It needs to be done, especially when the word is on the street, 95% of our state court judges, our Cook County judges, of course it's Cook County, right? That's our joke. And 95% of the federal court judges in the Northern District of Illinois are corrupt. We got a problem there. And I don't care if somebody finds those records and publishes them, and it shows that there are phony mortgage payoffs. One person takes out a mortgage, the judge, and then another person pays it off so they can get a favor in court. That needs to be exposed. So if you have your hacktivists out there, please don't go out and lien the judge's property records. I don't even know, hack their computers, whatever you're doing, jam their fax lines. Don't do that. Well, get them where the corruption is and get it out there and demand the Department of Justice do something. These people don't belong on the bench. They belong in federal prison, and this is what we need to do.
Well, I'll tell you, there are people, targeted individuals, people who have been targeted with some sort of killer plot that's put on them, Yeah, you know what? I got to tell you, several times driving on the expressway, I got blocked in, and some heavy object hit my windshield, right? But you know what? I'm not going to go and hunt down the person that did that and have any retribution to him, because I know that he is just a cog in the system. But what I'm getting at, though, is that he probably got told to do it. I'm going after the judges. Well, but what I'm getting at here is that, these people often have, property in their name. Their Social Security numbers have been used, and there's property over here. This corporation's used that, and there's this fake property everywhere that exists on paper. And there's these trust funds who they're in people's names. They do this to a lot of whistleblower agents. I mean, this is where I'm getting the information from. For example, like Karen Stewart, who is a retired NSA agent, and they put the hit on her. There's a trust fund in her name. Hacktivists really need to get into this. And I'm with you on this. It doesn't need to be anything illegal. It doesn't need to be something, tremendously overdone. But these people need to be doxxed. These people, need to have their records public. If you're a public servant, from police officer to the president, your records need to be public. I agree. And I think there's a serious problem with Trump not publishing. I'm sorry, I don't usually get into politics.
but with our current administration not publishing tax returns. That is a huge red flag to me. That just speaks volumes for the type of person that you're dealing with. This person should not be in office. There should be a law that if you're not going to publish your tax returns, you're not going to get a public office. And you should be proud of your tax returns. You should be proud of what you've done. And if you're not, don't get into this, because this is an area where the public should demand and expect very high ethics and morals. And if you're the person who's even taken $5 of a bribe, I don't care. I don't want you in office. I don't want you to be my judge. That's just the way it is. There are 83,000 lawyers in Illinois, and we don't need a judge that has taken a $5 bribe. They can just move right along. That's absolutely ridiculous. They're not going to do the public any good. They're not doing me any good. I don't like to see that, and I don't like to be around it. I didn't even like working in law firms where the partners were having affairs. I thought that was scandalous. What is wrong with these people? If you make a promise, or if you say you're going to do something, do it, you know? Anyway, getting back to the hacktivists, I think there are things they can do to help. And it doesn't have to be to destroy a person's life by doing it illegally. I don't like to see people getting mad at a judge and then they go out and they lien up their property, because now all they've done is they've made that a crime. And that's really sad, because what we want to do is we want to expose the judges for exactly who they are, let the public see who they are, and then remove them from that office. And if the Department of Justice would ever get off their tushies and quit just drinking Starbucks all day, they might want to indict a few of those. You know, we've got to get rid of them. I think there's a lot of good that hacktivists can do. We would like to keep it legal, okay, and we would like to keep it targeted. In other words, you're not just going to expose judges and talk about their affairs or whatever. You know, I'm not into that. But the fact they're taking bribes, the fact that they're having covert deals with the mafia, with international cartels that are just running guns and drugs, which I know a lot of our politicians are doing, that needs to be exposed. We don't need any more guns passed around the world, thank you very much. And the world is becoming more in tune with the fact we need to shut down the weapons manufacturers, and the nuns that for years went out there and protested and held up, you know, nuclear bombs and things like that. They were right. You know, we should all be doing that. We have to get away from war and violence. We have to clean up our society. And while we're at it, let's clean up Mother Earth or Mother Gaia or whatever, too. A lot of corporations out there are doing a lot of pollution still, and they have to take responsibility and they have to clean things up. So those are my viewpoints. You might not agree with them, but that's how I feel. And I do want to clean up the court system, because what I see right now with them murdering the elderly, shoving the disabled into group homes, isolating everyone from their loved ones while they torture these people in completely unsuitable and inhabitable environments is just not right. That needs to be exposed. We need to take care of the disabled in a loving and caring manner. We need to take care of our elderly in a loving and caring manner. And we have to stop isolating them from their loved ones. And certainly we don't steal from them. That's got to be the worst crime of the century.
Well, now you are a legal expert here. I mean, aside from...
I have a law degree. I had a bar admission. I had several bar admissions. So I am a lawyer. I do know about the law. I am not a practicing attorney, courtesy of the Illinois ARDC. And, you know, maybe somebody wants to do something there. I'll tell you what, you hacktivists, I think Jerome Larkin, who had me taken out, number one, he ran a children's home in Elgin, and it was part of his family called the Larkin Children's Family Home. I think there was a lot of complaints that I think you might be able to find. There were a lot of complaints of fraud, sexual abuse of children, complaints filed by the parents. Their children were stolen from them so that he could have them and taken the state funds. There's a good place to start. This man has to be taken out. He took me out for telling the truth on a blog, but nobody can find him. I think he's got a no-show job. So maybe your hacktivists can get into that. And his wife, I am told, is a psychiatrist for the state, and I understand she has a no-show job. So if there's anybody that can figure out how to do that and get those records, I would sure love to have those, because he needs to be taken out. Guy's got a problem. You see? It's not good.
Well, and so what I was getting at was, with you being a legal professional, what are some of the laws themselves could be changed? I mean, there's no endless statutes for these people to exploit, but what are some things that should be taken out and then some things that should be implemented?
Well, in terms of probate, there are definitely, I have a wish list I actually put on my blog. My blog is at www.marygSykes, MARYGSYKES.com. And it was about the first case that I really encountered that was running without jurisdiction. There was $1 million missing in gold coins. They tried to suppress that at my ARDC trial. We actually got copies of the bank records that the guardian had emptied a safe deposit box without a court order. You're supposed to have that. And she had emptied it and not inventoried it. Oh, the ARDC was mad about me exposing that corruption because a bunch of powerful lawyers were involved and a very powerful judge. They were mad at me because I exposed over and over again by going to sheriff's offices that Mary was never served. And you have to serve a person to take jurisdiction of a case. I hope everybody knows that. So some of the laws that we could put in place, and like I say, I do have a wish list, but it starts by videotaping these people being informed of their rights, which they are required to know about by law, receiving their rights in large bold print, which of course they don't do now, making sure that the court-appointed physician is doing an adequate exam, which they're not doing now. They take away their glasses or dentures. Anyway, they give them drugs. They could be drugged at the time that they're taking the competency exam, which they do now. That we have to put an end to. More videotaping. These GALs, we caught one just a few weeks ago going out there and telling the elderly person, you don't have to come to court. You don't want to go to court. It's worse if you come to court. Well, it's kids for cash all over again. It's telling people to waive their rights, even when the person is sitting there saying, I want to go to court, and I don't want the Office of State Guardian, the Office of Public Guardian to be my guardian. So all of those waivers of rights should be videotaped. In fact, the entire interview with the elderly person, which they are required by law to do, because the judge can't come out to the person's house. The judges don't travel. So they appoint somebody called a GAL. I think you're probably familiar with the perfidy of many GALs, right? They just have a frugality with the truth. That has to be tape recorded because there's a lot of corrupt, unscrupulous GALs out there. They are a huge problem in this whole system. People can only waive their rights, I think, on tape and knowingly, and they can take back those rights, I think, at any time by just making another tape. And the way they do that is by isolating family members from them, whereas family members should be able to make their tapes and all that. There are laws we can do, and like I say, wish lists. Many of my wish lists are simply that all of these things are recorded, that people are allowed to record. That would go a long way. I don't have my wish list in front of me, but there are things that we could do to make the guardianship process of the elderly a lot better, a lot more transparent. And again, I think there has to be an oversight committee, especially for probate, where there's literally millions of dollars involved, easy to cook up scams and schemes to fleece these people through the probate court system, who, of course, they think they have absolute immunity, can't go back and question any of their judgments. When they ruin a house and then sell it off cheap to their friends, when they have to sell a house in foreclosure, sell it off cheap to their friends. This goes on not infrequently, okay? And there's no oversight.
Well, hold on. I want to go into more of the recording because I know that I have some lawsuits that I'm going to be doing here pretty soon. I'm going to be a very familiar face in the courtroom setting. But I'd like for my own media to be able to cover it, but I know I would meet stiff resistance with that. Don't you think every court case, every hearing should have some video recording?
Yes. I think that, and right now, a lot of the courts in Cook County have banned it. You can't bring in your tablet. You can't bring in your cell phone. I have, you know, when I used to go to court, they would give you this little ID, just this little ID, and, you know, you would show it, and then they would let you through, and you didn't have to go through, you know, the searches or whatever over with the long lines. And they took it away from me. And you know why they took it away from me? Because I was told the deputy in court that I had a constitutional right to blog about a case and take notes if I wanted to. That's why they took Sheriff Thomas J. Dart of Cook County took away my ID for explaining my constitutional rights to a deputy in court. The other thing they do is they gangbang people in court. This is really interesting. If you're in there and you tell the judge that the court or the decision or somebody is corrupt or somebody's stealing, right away the judge pushes a button and he gets surrounded by all these deputies. And every once in a while, if you don't take and sometimes they'll take you out in the hall, then they'll tell you leave and don't come back. Every once in a while, not only will they tell you to leave and not come back because the case is corrupt and they don't need you there, but they will beat the crap out of you in the hallway too. I just had a case of that. Slammed a woman into the hallway wall. You know, it's concrete, right? It's concrete in our court system.
Right.
And then they went and they arrested her. And then when they got back downstairs, she's an older woman. She's 45. You know, you don't slam some 45-year-old woman into a wall without probably doing some serious damage, right?
Right.
Slammed her into a wall. They yanked her and dragged her downstairs into their little, whatever that hidey hole is downstairs. I've not been down there. A little jail down there. And they handcuffed her to a pole. She was having heart palpitations. They told her she couldn't have her heart medicine. They were searching her bag. They couldn't find an ID. So they started screaming and yelling at her, where's her ID? And can somebody bring her ID? And she's like, no, I live by myself and I left it at home. I don't need it for this court building. They were furious, and, you know, they did everything they could. They started threatening her and everything. But eventually they took her back upstairs to the judge. She had a court call. It was a corrupt judge. She lost her custody of her daughter to some felon, some thug with a... Now, how did that happen? He's got a 10-page rap sheet for selling drugs, beating people up, gun violations, the whole 9 yards. How did he get custody of a little girl? How did he get custody? This was shown to the judge. And not only that, he got custody in a court order that wasn't even on a court date. How did that happen? I published that too. How did this happen? We want to know. And every time she's got to see her daughter, she has to pay $500 a day for a court supervisor. This judge has got to be like really, really corrupt. He's got to be. And I'm told he is. His property records are all screwed up. I mean, I could see that. He's obviously in league with some cartel. I don't know. But of course, she comes to court to change custody, and they gangbang her. They get her out in the hall. They slam her up against the wall, doing permanent back and nerve damage. You know, so now her right arm is weak. It can't hold anything. This is typical modus operandi in the circuit court.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure you've heard of it. You've heard of it, right?
I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it myself.
They bring her up to court, and the judge goes, are you going to press any charges against you? No, Your Honor, we couldn't even find an ID. Well, that tells you something. Don't bring an ID to court, because then they're going to press charges for something you obviously didn't do.
Right.
I think the only thing she told I don't know what, if anything, she did, because of course there's supposed to be an incident report for things like this. The incident report is always missing. We FOIA'd it. It's missing. They did this to another litigant. They threatened to go out because they wanted to know where her money was, so the probate attorneys could get it. Right, she's the daughter in the Mary G. Sykes case. The judge handcuffed her to a table in her back room, and then had the deputies threaten to go pick up her pets, all of her pets, and have them euthanized at the city pound if she didn't say where her money was, so that the court could seize the money and then give it to the attorneys. This is what they do. It's not good. And I caught that judge lying at my trial. The transcript got changed. How many times have we heard of the changed transcripts, right? All over the place. And I actually know a court reporter who told me she quit because she was told to change a transcript, and she said no. And the name of the lady who was in charge of making the court reporters change the transcripts. Her name is Marilyn Fishborough. She makes $160,000 as a court reporter, never transcribes anything. But that's her state salary. How is that? I would like to know. See, V, when you get into it with me, it's never ending. I've been doing this now for 5 years. It just gets worse and worse, higher and higher. I send complaints all the way up to the ladder, to the White House. We always send White House at whitehouse.gov, Department of Justice, ask DOJ at doj.gov. We send it all over the place. Do we hear a peep from any of these people when we get these complaints? No, we never hear a peep. Nobody ever says, thank you for contacting us. We're going to look into that and investigate and make sure that there are no crimes that have been committed. We never hear that. Never, ever, ever. Nope.
My little joke about this is it's the Department of Justice, the departing of justice. You're not going to see it.
That's a good one. I got some.
And I love, when I lived in California, I love they called it the criminal justice system. If you just think about that. So
yeah, California justice system would be the criminal justice system. We don't have Cook County. We have Cook County. The ARDC, Attorney Registration and Disciplinary Committee, and this is from a probate victim. She's supposed to be incompetent. You know what she told me? Attorneys that are really dicks and cunts. I thought that was good. There's so many of them. And then we had their guardians. No, they're guardians of death and demise. Oh, yeah, I get a lot of that stuff. The names they give the attorneys are even funnier, too. So it's a bad system. We got to clean it up. We got to have oversight. We got to have some people in there to kick butt. And the whistleblowers have to be protected. Because, you know, whenever I used to file things with the Illinois Supreme Court, I used to ask them to declare me a protected whistleblower. Never heard anything on that, for sure. You know, state employees are protected. But an attorney that is whistleblowing on a state system is not protected. And I think we need a whistleblower law for attorneys. For me, for Ken. There's another black guy. They took away his law license because he outed corruption. You want to hear his case? Judge Lynn Egan. Judge Lynn Egan's brother was a lawyer. He had a law practice. This attorney Amu, who was black, a Nigerian immigrant who was working for all kinds of African immigrants, God bless him, nicest guy, right? He's representing people that would never otherwise have an attorney. So, you know, the court system doesn't like him. He's got all those unwashed bodies coming before him nobody likes, right? I'm like, you guys are nuts, right? And by the way, I have actually represented the homeless in court, and I have had court employees and the judges even say to me, did you know he smells? And did you know that he's dirty? And I go, this is not the first homeless person I have ever represented, and it's not going to be the last. And for the court employees, I would say, if it offends you, you know, you could leave the courtroom, but he actually has a constitutional right to be here with me.
Yes.
This is our court system telling me my client, my pro bono client, is smelly and dirty, and did I notice?
Okay. Well, you know, I was going to ask. So,
isn't that crazy? It's like the craziest thing you've ever heard.
Well, my thing is, I've heard you say over and over, you know, you sent in this paperwork, you filed this, and there's like no response. Isn't there a process, or at least should there be a process in when, you know, you, after so many non-responses of, you know, legitimate, you know, concerns being brought to an agency, courtroom, etc., that, you know, there should be something filled out to where, okay, you guys had your chance to look at this, you've ignored me, well, here's this paperwork, now you have to look at it. Is there anything like that, or is it just...
Well, it's basically our court system. You have to go back and sue them, and I can tell you the stories. So there we had a Polish lady in Chicago, and she was really sweet and little, and she worked as a bartender. And this one night, this Chicago police officer was drunk, and she refused to serve him. So he flew into a rage, hopped over the bar, and beat the shit out of her. Got her down on the ground, choking and punching her and kicking her, and I think eventually somebody pulled our Chicago's finest off of her, but not before she was severely injured and spent about 3 or 4 weeks in ICU. You know, he got her spleen and her kidneys and all this crap. Fortunately, As all good bars in Chicago, for the riffraff, they have security video. And the owner made sure that her attorney got the security video because the police were after it. And he was sure to make a copy before he gave it to the police because, you know, that video disappeared. Isn't that amazing? All right.
Yeah.
Then her attorney, a very smart move because she's got to get into federal court. He went and he filed numerous complaints. Of course, they were all lost. How does that happen? But he's got the receipts for it. You know, you either send them in certified mail or mail with tracking. So he went into court, and of course, he pled, and this is such a serious case, he pled this was pattern and practice of the Chicago Police Department. Our Mayor, Rahm Emanuel, had a fit, and they were looking to settle with the lady after the jury came back and awarded her like $500,000 for this. And the settlement said that if she wanted $500,000 and not take it up on appeal, she would have to drop the charge of pattern and practice because it's dangerous. It sets a precedent for all the other cases to directly sue the county. Rahm Emanuel got in there like the little idiot dickhead he is, excuse my language, and he said that she had to take that out. So she did, but the word got out in the street. So by the time she went before the judge put it all back in. So that was good. Justice was done somehow at the Northern District of Illinois. But the important part about it is when you send in those complaints, you track them. You keep track of them because when you have your case in court before the jury, which is what everybody should do, there should be no settling of these cases. There should be no gag orders. Take them to a jury. Tell your story because that's the only way we're going to get rid of this cancer that's invaded our courts. And
you know what? That's good.
That are dismissed. That are when you say they're lost and all that. That shows a veniality on the part of the defendant entitling you to punitive damages. So those are very important.
Yes.
File your complaints.
File your complaints, and it's very important. But we got to take a quick pause for. I want people to buy this. People. Buy Lou Garino's book.
Yeah, guys, it's on Amazon. You can check it out by the author, Lou Garino, Garino. You can go to my Facebook page, Business Newsmakers. You can order it on there. You can go to Amazon. The book is called Fear and Loathing, Voting in America 2016. But it's more than just a voting book and about apathy. It's about how we got to this point in history. So it could be relevant in 2020 as well. How did we get here right now? What were the set of circumstances politically and socially that melted to this point where our country is the way it is right now, where they have divided us? And when I say they, we're not divided amongst ourselves. We're united, man. I live in one of the most culturally diverse cities in America, in the world, Houston, Texas. People open the door for each other. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Howdy. There's no hate. It's all what they're selling on TV through their psychological operations. So it's all about that. It's all about how the Clintons came to power, the Bushes, you name it, guys. Fear and Loathing, Voting in America 2016. It's a must read. It gives you a different look as opposed to the partisan views. It gives you the anti-partisan view about how this country started without any parties whatsoever, and about how they collaborated to take control of our country. So you get a chance, give it a read. It's not too long. It's not War and Peace. I make the points rather quickly. Fear and Loathing, Voting in America 2016. And I also want to encourage you to stay tuned to this new television show that is enlightening the world. It's illuminating the people that are illuminating us. So we've got to stay true. We've got to seek the truth, and we've got to keep endlessly seeking the truth. So stay tuned, guys, and keep watching.
Think there isn't much difference between emergency food companies? We bought competing products from recognized brands so we could show you a very simple comparison to Legacy Premium. easy to see. Legacy not only gives you more food for your money, but Legacy is non-GMO and tastes great.
With current social media sites crowded with advertisements, social quizzes, and just general clutter, I wanted to find an application that put the users first instead of the shareholders. I found MeWe, an app that hopes to revolutionize social media by only showing posts from people you want to see, not displaying annoying advertisements, and most importantly, protecting your online privacy. MeWe isn't designed to replace Facebook, Twitter, or your other large social media networks. It is instead a supplement that can be used between yourself and only your closest friends. The CEO of MeWe says, Facebook is for your public life and MeWe is for your real life. MeWe is a free app on the App Store and Google Play, as well as a website that can be accessed from your computer. The overall design is very minimalistic to reduce clutter and improve the ease of use.
Okay, and we are back for the second half hour of the show. And yes, all compelling information. I find legal talk very fascinating. I'm more of an action guy that wants to go and kick in doors and serve street justice. But hey, we got to start with the bloodless revolution, if possible, first. JoAnne,
well, I think all you need is a little bit of direction, and I can give you a very effective to-do list that will be mostly legal. It's not going to get you in a lot of trouble, but it will get you to the point where you want to be. And of course, we always want to go the nonviolence, no criminal activity route first, because if they're going to go after anybody, they're going to go after you and me. So I think we need to have our to-do list. There's a lot of things to do that can really expose this stuff, take these people out. We can hit that first and take the high road. And then when people say, oh, look how wonderful you are, you always took the high road, we can say, yes, we were busy doing that. And then we don't have to worry about the rest of it. Okay?
And if all that fails, there's a Second Amendment. But no, okay, just but you have second
Amendment with guns and all that. I have to tell you, and maybe we're getting into a little bit of woo-woo quantum physics, which you talked about. You know about quantum physics.
Yes,
it's my understanding right now that scientists are looking at the quantum physics of explosives, and they are looking at a cheap device you can have in your home, your office building, or carry on your person. And it is based in quantum physics, which is targeted magnets, lights, and sound frequency generation, sound waves, right? And there will not be anything that it can explode on or near you. So that is coming. So all of these politicians that think they're going to blow something up, if everybody has one of these in their neighborhood, they can drop that bomb, but it's not going to do anything. Okay? That is coming.
You're talking about scalar shielding. Yes.
Yes, and it is coming. It's in the works. And what's going to happen after that is there's not going to be any more war. That's what I'm told. So, it's going to be interesting to see the Pentagon's excuse for spending all this money on stuff that doesn't work, and politicians who are kowtowing to the financial interests of war profiteers. That's going to be interesting, but not my problem. I don't care. So peace and love, which I have prayed for at least 40 decades, is coming. Okay? It took 40 years of me and a bunch of people praying, but it is coming. So there you go.
I hope you're right.
I think it's coming. I think that people will be able to carry something on, because even if somebody shoots you, it's not the bullet passing through you necessarily that will kill you. It is the fact that once it touches your body, it explodes, and it does a ton of damage. I mean, I think you know that, right?
Yes. The Department of Defense has had these experiments with these units on the sides of their Humvees for the IUDs. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. IEDs.
IEDs, there you go. Well, protects your uterus, too, if you've got one. That's good.
I'm sorry. I had a guest on the show
IEDs,
that was sex trafficked, and she had IEDs all over her body, implanted in her body. So that's why that came up. But IEDs, explosive devices. And yeah, but the military is... doing that work.
I understand that it is now in the hands of average scientists, and they are going to bring that to the average civilian on the street and into your homes, and they're going to be reasonably priced. And they're going to be all over the world, like cell phones in third world countries, really quick. So all this crap going on in Syria, wherever it's going on, that's going to be over real quick.
Well, then you got to move into directed energy weapons, laser, Star Wars stuff. But
it'll stop that too. That's not going to go anywhere. So,
well, I hope you're right. But
I do too. I'm praying for it. Every day I pray for that. That we stop harming one another. That we use our words. We use our court filings and papers, and we get in a team of attorneys who can serve the poor and the average person on the street so that justice is done for everyone, not just the wealthy, but the average person on the street. We have to work toward that because it makes people happy when they feel like they go to court. They may not like the decision, but at least if the judge is attempting to follow the law and make a good decision, I think things could improve in our court system. Certainly not stealing tons of thousands of dollars in a divorce makes anybody happy. That's got to end. And it's got to end in probate, too. That's just the end of that.
I want to get...
You have to be reasonable.
I want to get this test for psychopathy put into the courtrooms and the political systems. We're on the same page. Why are we on the same page? See, the angels all work together. See, we have lie detector tests that,
They don't work. No, lie detectors.
They don't. No.
Right.
All you have to do to fail a lie detector test is to be frightful, and someone can yell at you right before you need to take one, and then you'll fail that test because you're
agitated.
You're agitated, and.
But have you watched the Penn and Teller special on it? It shows you how to lie your way through it and pass it. Go watch. Penn and Teller bullshit on, and I had to say that. I'm sorry, that's the name of their program. Okay.
Actually, I've seen that series. I don't remember that episode.
Yes. No, I don't like it that much either, but they do have some really good shows, and one of them is a lie detector, and they do a really good job of it. They show how it actually works, how you get the person all worked up, and then the person who's, quote, certified in an unscientific crazy test, because there's no way you can tell a person is lying from the sweat on their palms, their blood pressure, or their heartbeat. No way you can tell whether or not a person's lying. However, the PET brain scan, as you know, uses targeted glucose, which is the fuel or the food for the brain, and we have mapped the brain. So people that don't use areas of their brain for love, kindness, tenderness, sympathy, empathy, and understanding, those people are psychopaths. They're never going to use those areas of their brain. They don't like those areas of their brain. They use the areas of their brain. Their brain activity is used with war, torture, violence, humiliation, nastiness, and bullying. Right? Am I right?
Absolutely.
We have that mapped out. So we know how to test for psychopathy. And what percentage of judges do you think are in our courtrooms now that are psychopaths? I'm voting over 50%, and they need to be taken out. The police that beat people up.
I would go as far as saying 80, 85.
Well, we're going to find out, because I think it's coming. I think if you and I push, and you're out there doing this publicly, we can push for anybody who has been licensed. Before they get their license, they have to take the test. Doctors, nurses, lawyers, politicians, right? Am I right? Teachers, daycare providers, all of them should be tested for psychopathy, because anybody that works in a nursing home, because they are taking care of the most vulnerable people out there, they have to have good morals and ethics, and they cannot be turned on by war, torture, violence, nastiness, humiliation, and bullying. Am I correct? Yes, we have to make sure of that.
I've been saying this for years. For my first radio broadcast.
Wow. I've been
great to
saying
hear a
this,
lawyer say this.
ever since I learned about it. I've been saying that now for 2 or 3 years, and I really don't get a lot of push from the people. It's kind of like a blip. You know, they listen, they say, yeah, but what if it's not real? I go, it is real. It is coming. You can go and look at the studies and the statistics on it. It is real. Just like you go and you get a CBC to find out what your white blood cell count is, to find out how sick you are with pneumonia. And then the doctor prescribes antibiotics. It is the same thing for your brain activity. So
Absolutely.
It's coming. And we got to do it. So I'm glad you're doing this. I'm glad you're willing to talk about it. You know, it's amazing how much we are on the same page. But I think maybe the same angels are feeding us the same information, though.
Well, a higher power is always needed when justice needs to be served.
Yes. Well, I don't know. There are a lot of people who were atheists their entire life, and then all of a sudden they got approached and said, you're going to be doing this. You know, stop what you're doing and start doing this, because all of a sudden you're a light worker and you're going to save the world. So sometimes that happens too. You never know what's going to happen in life, right? Never know. That's what makes it so much fun.
Never know. So what is the future of your can I call it a practice? Your activism? Because, I mean,
as long as there is a person who calls me up crying about what happened in court and there was some form of corruption, I'm not going anywhere and I'm not doing anything. All I ask people to do is to make a donation. That's all I ask for, okay? I help them report to the authorities. I help their attorneys put together cases, or I'll find somebody. I have to have a supervisor now that they booted me out of their lovely little garden club, right? Because I don't fit in. I tell the truth. Imagine that, going to court and telling the truth. Can't have that, right?
Right.
So I still continue to do what I've done before. I've always been the type of person, never made much as a lawyer, because I always took these cases, these highly sympathetic cases, and then there's corruption, and I've just always struggled. So I'm used to this. It's like no big deal. I keep my rent low and things cheap, and my house is pretty much paid for. So, you know, I'm older. I can do this. My kids are grown. I don't worry about them. I don't worry as much about them coming after my kids. They're all tech savvy. They're all cameras and crap up all over the place. My house is loaded with cameras. My computers, my sons have them set up so that they are as immune as can be from attack. My kids are into that. You know, they take care of me, so we're okay.
Hey, I might need some of their services.
Yeah. The only problem is now my son works for a living. So he's going to say, you're going to have to buy a ticket. Sometimes he'll tell me that. And I go, you're going to have to give back all the breast milk and clean diapers. How about that, kid? Pretty funny. So there you go.
Yes, indeed.
That's right. You don't talk to me like that, man. Because I slogged through raising you from a puppy to a full-grown human adult being that got a job, made it through college, and is out on their own. If you think that's easy, you try it someday. Oh, I don't want to have kids. That's a lot of work, Mom. Yeah, okay, you're young. It'll be fine. It's too funny. It's a lot of work. Yeah, You were a definite example of that.
Well, you know, I'd like to have you officially a part of my show. I mean, victims come to me all the time, and
that's fine.
I can always refer them to you.
Yes, refer them to me. I'm available 24/7. I try to get a few hours of sleep a day. But if somebody calls me up and they're really in distress and all that, I will take the call. The best thing to do is to get your court documents together, get them scanned in, labeled. Please label them with the date, your name, and the title of the pleading. Get them loaded up into G Drive. Share it with me. I can quickly go through the court documents, and then I can advise you on what, even if you had an attorney, would never tell you. And it's easier for me with pro se people, because pro se people will file the truth. They don't hesitate for a second. But lots of times we got a lawyer involved and they say they're going to file it. They don't file it, or they take half the stuff out and they don't tell the truth, or they just take the money and they never file anything. That's the most common. They take the money, they don't file anything. They don't speak up for the person in court. They won't tell the judge, hey, Your Honor, you know, she's in this dirty, crappy nursing home that smells. You need to get her out of there. She really wants to go home. Stop the sale of the house. See, you know, they don't want to say that. You know, the attorneys are going to make money. They sell the house, take their attorney's fees out of it. But somebody's got to tell the judge it's wrong. So, yeah, send me the victims. I'd love to help them. I'd love to counsel them. I'd love to hold their hand. I spend a lot of time on the phone. I do Skype any way I can take care of them and make this process less horrendous, because it is a horrendous, awful process. I don't turn anybody away because you can't pay. Whatever you can donate, that's great. But I don't turn away. I've got a lot of clients I've done a lot of work for. I haven't seen a dime. Not only that, I have actually given them books and things that will help them that I have paid for. So you figure that one out, right? Now, they're all sitting in warm houses with cell phones, and sometimes I'll question them on that. Don't you think you should make a donation once in a while? I mean, I know she got a cell phone, you got an internet, you got a house, you know, you could, like, help me out a little. Oh, no, I got to save it because they're going to take all my money in this litigation. I go, okay, fine. Okay, that's your decision. Okay. Anyway, so I survived. I'm sure you're surviving too, and I'm glad that you're doing this, and it sounds like you're dedicating your life. You don't have another job, but you're trying to make a difference in the world. You're trying to bring it into a better place, and I applaud you for that. That's a very important thing to do.
You know, I'm just trying to be like my peers, you know, just, you know, people like you. We're in the same boat as far as I can see. I counsel people all day long, people who want to call and just tell their story, and I try to get as many as I can on the air. For those who aren't too afraid, aren't too, you know.
Well, I'm not afraid of anything. And most of my clients, I send them a form. They tell me whether or not I can blog about their case and, you know, make it public. And most of them do. Most of them are pretty well fed up with the court system. And I think that's wonderful that they allow me to do this, because it helps me help so many more people. Now, I do have a few clients where they have been told, you better shut up, because if you don't shut up, we're going to kill your mom off right now. We have one like that. Her name is Barbara Stone. She's down in Florida, and she hasn't had any contact with me, so all you people should be happy about that. But I know she's suffering, and I know what you're doing, so stop it. If you're listening to the show,
that's a hell of a gag order.
No, well, it's not a gag order. They didn't put anything in writing.
Right.
Barbara Stone had been, when I met her, she had been arrested a number of times. She was wearing 2 or 3 ankle bracelets, and they were all over her butt like flies to a dead corpse. They were all over her. They were furious with her. She was going to the FBI. She was going to all state's attorneys. She was telling them they're murdering her mother, which they were doing. They removed her from her home. This is an interesting story, a typical story. Barbara Stone's brother stole $600,000 from Mom's checking account. So Barbara's like asking the attorneys up in New York, what should I do? And they go, you're going to have to file a guardianship. So she went down to Florida to get and she didn't know anything about this. She doesn't know what you and I know, right? She goes down to Florida. She hires an attorney. He files for a guardianship, and he says, you can't be guardian because you're from New York. So they go ahead and appoint the psychopathic cousin. Doesn't like the mother. Mother doesn't like her. Now, that's kind of rare because the court generally doesn't like to appoint anybody that the elderly person objects to. But, of course, if everybody covers all that up and doesn't say anything, that's what happens. So from there, Barbara had lived at the home with her mother. She would come down several times a year and spend like 3 or 4 weeks with her. Barbara was an attorney. But she went into real estate because you can make a ton of money selling condos in Manhattan. It turns out she was really good at that. So she came down to Florida. She bought a condo. She had a condo down there when I was down there. I told her to get it offshore. You know, don't let them get it here. And her mother was guardianized, and they put in this cousin who immediately, and I guess she's getting the advice of the GAL and her lawyer, and they're all just corrupt lawyers. And they moved in 2 Haitian caretakers that barely spoke English. And then they told Barbara they booted her out of her room. These 2 Haitian caregivers moved in with all their stuff into 1 bedroom, which was Barbara's, right? And then they booted her out, and Barbara got a court order. She couldn't go over the house. Why? Because Barbara complained that the caretakers were giving her mother Miralax because they were keeping her in bed all day. And Miralax is a dangerous anti-constipation medication. It's actually plastic, and some people react violently to it. So the Miralax was making her mother agitated, and it was also exasperating whatever little tiny bit of memory loss she had. She actually, before she was guardianized, and this is very common in these stories, She was going to the health club. She was working out. She was going to lunches with her friends. You know, she was an active senior at the age of 70. She wasn't that bad off at all. But they get a hold of her and they start drugging her. And of course, these psychotropic drugs ruin your brain. And they gave her Miralax and all kinds of things. And Barbara reported it to the court. She reported that you're not, according to the FDA, you're not to give Miralax to the elderly. So what does the judge do? He charges her with interfering with the care and custody of an elderly person and has her charged, and she ends up with an ankle bracelet. So we go along. She gets some visitation. She visits with her mother, and her mother wants to stay out all day shopping. Well, the nursing home went and called the guardian, who called the GAL and said that the mother had been out too long from her home. And so they sent the police out looking for her, and they had stopped at a hotel to, like, I don't know, swim or whatever for the afternoon. It's her mother, right? So they stopped there, and they actually had the police come and arrest the two of them. And Mom went back to her home with the Haitian caregivers who were treating her like crap, right? And Barbara got another ankle bracelet. Imagine, visiting with your own mother gets you arrested and charged down in Florida, right? So then the third, and I've seen all the court records, and it was even worse because when you go and pull the criminal court records in Florida, half of them are missing. She said, yeah, you know that's corruption, right? It's just the court records are missing.
Absolutely.
Because they don't want anybody to know. They're arresting people for merely visiting with their elderly mother, right? It's crazy crap. So anyway, so all the police records are missing, the prosecutor's notes are missing, all this crap. And because Barbara would then complain during these criminal proceedings that the Haitian caregivers were giving her mother bruises, they were pinching her, they were giving her non-FDA approved drugs, all this kind of crap. She's telling the criminal court judge that puts it in the file, and then it goes missing out of the file, right? It's typical crap. And I saw it. I was down there. I mean, I saw all this stuff, and I blogged about it, and I'm sure they had, I know they had it fit about it. I think they told me to remove stuff off the blog, but I take those letters and throw them in the trash. So if there's anybody out there listening to like what I write on the blog, if it's the truth and you write to me, I do not take cease and desist letters. Don't even bother with them. You're wasting your time. I don't care. All right. You're the same way, right, V? You don't take crap down.
I don't take anything down.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's one thing I wanted to talk to you. My son recommended Vimeo. You pay him like $9 a month, but now I understand they have a free program. They never take anything down. You got to get your court order. Whereas on Facebook, they'll yank anything for any reason. They're worthless. So I started putting up videos of Mary Sykes on Vimeo. That's a little trick my IT son told me.
Yes.
So if you people out there, you have those videos of the cops beating somebody up or the caretakers beating somebody up and the court protects them, put them on Vimeo. They won't come down. Now, Vimeo doesn't get the traffic of Facebook, but you don't have to worry about it coming down, all right? And that is important in this game, that we get the truth out and we make sure it stays out there. Not that the miscreants can come around behind our backs and take the stuff down. We don't need that, right? We have enough work to do. So anyway, Barbara, eventually what happened was the mother had to go to the ICU. She was severely dehydrated, malnourished. This is after they barred Barbara from seeing her completely. Okay, so then it goes to that. Barbara can't see her mother completely. And, of course, she ends up in ICU for 3 weeks. She had lacerations, contusions, fractures. She had aspirational pneumonia. They were basically trying to kill this woman. She was in the ICU for 3 weeks. Now, what do you think would happen after that? After Barbara complained to the court again, I told you this was going to happen. Now it happened. These people are incompetent, blah, 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 right? We can't mention those words because I have a lot of words for this. So What did Michael Gendon do? That's the judge, Judge Michael Gendon, had Barbara arrested again, okay? And I don't even know what he had her arrested for. She just got arrested.
Just got arrested.
Yeah, she just got arrested because Michael Gendon called over to the state, his buddies over at the prosecutor's office. And you would think they would get rid of the whole crew in the courtroom, right? How did this woman end up in the ICU when she had been under a guardianship? And she was severely beaten, abused, dehydrated, malnourishment, all that kind of stuff. Guess where they send her? Right back to the same place, where she is again found 6 months later. With dehydration, malnutrition. Oh, you got to get the UTI in there. They always get dehydration, malnutrition, a urinary tract infection, and pneumonia.
Well,
so what did they do after that?
Yeah.
After they got her out of the ICU for the second time, they then put her in a nursing home. How nice. And then they sell the condo. Why? Because the caregivers are incompetent, the court is incompetent, the attorneys are incompetent, and who suffers? The mother suffers. So everybody pray for Barbara Stone. She tried to protect her mother.
Absolutely.
And now she was running all these websites. She had all these websites, all these blogs, get rid of these people. She had filed all these proceedings, which of course her defamation cases were kicked out by the powers that be. And then they finally told her, you say one more thing on a blog or on social media, we're going to kill your mother. She was told that. She recorded it. She went to the FBI with it. Nobody's done anything.
Nobody's done anything.
No, that's why now she calls me. She'll call me on a track phone, but she hasn't called me in a long time.
Well, that sounds like that's what would happen. It's satanic ritual abuse. But I want to thank you for coming onto the show once again.
Sure. Anytime.
Second time around. That's the end of the show here. A few seconds left. So I urge everyone to contact this wonderful activist who is doing such great works. If you have any situations like this, you need to be represented. You have any ideas? You think you can help out? You want to make donations? That would be, great as well. So, again,
that would be wonderful. And thank you so much for having me. And you keep up the good work too, because when you're going up against corruption and trying to clean up the world and the United States like you are, that is work of a very high calling. Somebody has a lot of faith and trust in you somewhere. I mean, I always wonder about that, but I keep on going to work and I keep on doing the same thing. So
that's what we got to do.
That's what we got to do. We got to clean up the world. If the FBI and the state's attorneys aren't going to do it, well, okay, fine, I'll do it.
All right. Well, thank you.
Right.
I got to close out the show.
Take care. Have a good evening, all right?
All right. Bye.